This is so we are both at the same level. We had a program before you guys came.
Okay, well, welcome this evening. I'm Paul Turman. My wife is Vice President of the American Association, and the American Association is happy to welcome you to this presentation by the master, Sisto Pascale. I've had the honor of being his friend for many years. I've had the privilege of being in his studio on many occasions and to have heard his wisdom on art. It's very interesting, and I'm not going to do any spoilers or anything like that, but it's very interesting that you know, all through history, art has been an integral part of society, of everything that we do. And even you know, now we have it separate in the world. Now it's crafts on one side and art on one side, but actually everything was always art. And we've got a little bit away from that. In the 1920s and 30s, there was a very famous English author, Sir Hugh Seymour Walpole, and he said, "Art and life ought to be hurriedly remarried and brought to live together." And I thought about that, and I thought that was very accurate. And then the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, Bernard Idings Bell, said, "To be artist and lover, that is the true goal, the only adequate objective, the divinely destined end of man." And I wholeheartedly agree. Sisto Pascale was born in Montevideo, Uruguay in 1965. When he was just 5 years old, he moved to the United States, where he lived for 17 years. At a very early age, he began to study and participate in numerous art contests and workshops. By the age of 18, he had achieved many awards and recognitions for his work, to include Scholastic Art Awards, finalist with 2 gold keys, a painting at the Goddard Space Flight Center collection, finalist at the Kennedy Center Reader's Digest Art Contest, and various Astag Art Awards. He also won a scholarship from the Corcoran Art College, the Maryland College of Art and Design, the Baltimore Art College, and Pratt, and many more. In 1987, he returned to Uruguay with a degree from the Fine Arts College, from Maryland College of Art and Design, which is now the School of Art and Design at Montgomery College, including an associate's degree in fine art. Now, to those of you who moved to Uruguay at a young age, you know that there's no reciprocity whatsoever when you come with your college degrees here. You have to start all over again. So they gave Sisto, when he inquired about that at that age, they said, "Well, you can go back where you came from." They said it directly. "You go back where you came from. You can keep studying, but your degree won't be worth anything when it's done, or you can open up an art school." So, in keeping with that, he established his art studio and school and began teaching. From 1987 to date, he has worked and exhibited in almost all of the main Uruguayan art galleries. During the last 20 years, he has also made it possible for over 6,500 children, adolescents, and adults to somehow be involved in his continuous art projects. Thanks to the collaboration of many companies and his students in his studios, he has taught over 1,000 students. He has also worked hard in helping change the way art is taught in Uruguay through his conferences, where he has made many aware of the fact that art forms are part of our day-to-day life, hence my quotes of Uruguay. He has worked as a consultant, an art consultant with many private firms and embassies, including the United States Embassy for many years. If you go to Sisto's website, you'll see a lot of those things. To celebrate in 2007, to celebrate his 20 years of exceptional work in Uruguay, he had an exhibit, an extensive exhibit at the U.S. Embassy. His artwork inaugurated the new Carnival Museum here in Uruguay. Then he was asked by the U.S. Embassy to do a one-man show for President Bush when he visited Uruguay. He has participated in collective art exhibits celebrating Punta del Este's 100th birthday at the Mantra Casino Hotel. In the past 4 years, Sisto organized, in conjunction with the Uruguayan Air Force, an art project for kids involving the making, decorating of kites for flying kites. He organized and directed a documentary about the Candombe as Patrimonio de la Humanidad. And that was for the Presidencia de la Cámara del Palacio Legislativo. He also gave 2 conferences at the National Museum of Modern Art in Uruguay. Without further ado, I was going to try to condense some of that, but then when I read it several times, I thought, you know what, let's really, see what the master has done. Without further ado, we'll get started with the conference. It's a really fascinating subject. I've heard it in Spanish, and I look forward to hearing it in English. Thank you.
Well, basically everything that Paul said is true, but that doesn't make a man. What makes a man is basically how he stands and what he does. I judge people in life through their actions, not their words. Something I read somewhere in the almost 50 years I have. The title to the conference is Power of Creation. What is power of creation? Well, basically we're here to try to figure out what my interpretation is of power of creation. The hypothesis I'm throwing over the table are 27 years of research. When Paul said over 1,000 students, I've had more than 1,000 students in my studio, and I've reached out. I've lost count, but I think we've gone over the 10,000 limit with all the things we've done. And there are certain things that keep repeating in us as human beings. And first of all, before starting, I'd like to thank the American Association. I was really emotional when they invited me. In these 27 years, it's been very hard. In Uruguay, I think someone should start something like this, but the Alianza has been a great part of my life. Its library, thanks to its library, I was able to research. You have to go back in time in 1987 when a young kid comes to Uruguay and he needs information and he's craving to study, and he comes up with his brick wall and he has nowhere to find this information. The Alianza to me has been like a second home. The Biblioteca Artigas Washington, which I don't know if it still maintains its same name, it has been the place where I've gone to do my research. So I'd like to thank the American Association for permitting me to do this in English. In these years, all these thousands of people that have come across my life have all been teachers. So basically what I'm doing is I'm transmitting information that I was taught by my students. Power of creation. I want to ask you all to imagine, okay, we're going to create together. I want you all to imagine something rectangular, and imagine these colors, green, red, yellow, okay, the lights. And this thing that's rectangular, it's like this mustardy yellow color. And it's in the corner of the street, and I'm driving with my car, and all of a sudden, I see that these 3 lights, the red light shows up, and what do you do when you see that red light in the street? What you stop. All right, what is it that I'm describing right now? Is it I'm sorry, what?
Traffic light.
A traffic light, good. Are we all together? It's a traffic light? Has anybody, let's see if you're right. Wow, it's a traffic light, great. No, it's not a traffic light. You guys don't listen. You guys don't watch. We're living in a national world where you see what you want to see. I said a rectangular thing I didn't say a rectangular thing. I want like this. If we go back to what I said, it was green, red, yellow. Remember green?
Yeah.
Remember yellow? And remember red? Red, yellow, green. What am I talking about? I said no. What am I talking about? The power of creation. It's a sign. I just built a sign at the corner of the street with 3 lights. You actually saw what I wanted you to see. That's magic. But that's not what the power of creation is all about. What is the power of creation? You're going to go through this conference. We're going to go really quick, but it's going to be very narrated with a lot of diapositivas. How do you say it? Diapositivas? A lot of slides. The power of creation is the source of all. I don't want to talk about religion, but we all can put the name we want on. Power of creation is an energy. It's an energy that's everywhere. It's an energy that we can actually feel. I, as an artist, use it to create. That explains why I can spend 4 hours, 8 hours in a studio in this totally dummy look with a canvas in white and wait for the power of creation to come and tell me what to do. It doesn't tell me, I feel it. It's something that's around us. The interesting thing about the power of creation, men don't feel it as strong as women do. Why? Because it's kind of like feminine. I call it art. Power of creation, what is it? I like to call it art. I like to call it art so we can put a name that doesn't interfere with other people's thought. If I were to say the word G-O-D, someone might say, they might say, no, look, I don't agree with you. I call it art. What is art? I ask myself. This is a question that baffled everybody in college. To understand art, I have to understand how the universe works. But to understand how it works, I first have to understand myself. And I have to understand how I work. Do I really know that I am both feminine and masculine? In order to understand the power of creation, one of the things we have to do is we have to rid ourselves of our ego. The ego in our life is like a little devil. Okay? He starts walking around us and he's telling us, look, you know something? If you're going to do this, try to do it good so the other person will like it. And I'm doing something for somebody else, but I'm not doing it for me. And if I want the power of creation to work, one of the things I have to do is rid of myself. I would say it in Spanish, this desgraciado that lives within me. And with a bit of luck, if I understand all this, I can start a journey, okay, which will take me to understand. Now, try to be with me. Try to understand something that does not have form. If I ask you guys, give me the form of love. What is a logical form of love? Please. Is there a form of love? Is there a form of love?
Like a heart. I mean, some people.
Okay, good. He said there's a heart. Is this a heart? No. Have you ever seen a heart? A heart is not this. That's a rational way of seeing love. I have 2 beautiful kids, 14 and 16. I have a beautiful wife, and I cannot explain what attracts me after 16 years of uninterrupted love towards her. People that know me know we've had ups and downs, but there's something that attracts me to her. There's something in between us. That love does not have form. Well, the power of creation doesn't have form. That's what we're going to try to decipher today. Picasso, which was, to me, I think one of the most complete artists in our times, said, it took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child. I asked myself, no, when does the ego come into our lives? When does it start to develop? When is this mine and not yours? And mine is better than yours. Okay? What's he trying to say here? Is he trying to say that we have to do this? Look at his work, the Ermita. He's done over 300 works, 300 studies to get to this point. Okay? This person only took one drawing to do this. Okay? When he says to draw or paint like a child, what is he saying? He's saying that I have to rid of myself a whole bunch of, can I use the word crap? Yes? Is that a bad word? No? Crap? Yeah? Okay. I'm looking at him like he's my school principal. Okay. May I say it? Yes? Okay. I think what he's trying to say is, what we need to do is do things more for ourselves, not for you. When I paint, I don't care what you think about my painting. I really don't care. I do it for me, and I do it with love. When I do something for my kids, or I do something for my wife, I don't do it to please them. I do it because I feel it. That's where the energy is. We're taught to be rational human beings. Now this is funny. This is the part I say, you guys, please be tolerant with me. Because we're taught to be like this. We're taught to be perfect little rational people. The part about little rational people goes for me. We become, thanks to our education, chained to our ego. And there's less and less and less space for art, for that energy. How does it all start? Well, we're born. That's how it starts. Then we're welcomed into the world. I mean, they put us up and they say, hello, welcome to where you're going to like habitar. And then they give us these exercises, which are really great, because I have nothing against education. On the contrary, I would not be here saying what I'm saying. And I'm a product of a public education, elementary, high school public education, and a lot of scholarships to be where I'm at. So I'm very thankful for being educated. But what happens if in that education I say, look, I want to paint. There's no space for art in education because there's so much rational stuff we have to study that we're taught. Okay, they give us a little bit of paper and they say, okay, you want art? Okay, here you go. I'm going to give you this. It's already pre-drawn. And look, don't cross the line. Now this is, I see a small smirk on your face, and he's like, but didn't they say this sometime in school? Now the person that taught us this, they have no fault, because they were taught, and the people before were taught, and the people before were taught. So when does all this start? It must have started, who knows when. Stay within the limits, okay? Don't go outside the limits. The power of creation needs freedom. This basically explains why we as artists are not liked very much, you know? But what happens if me, Sisto, in a classroom wants to paint a blue apple? Okay, I'm within this freedom and I said, look, I'm a really little kid and I want to paint a blue apple. First thing my teacher's going to say is, apples are red and they're green, but they're not blue. True. They're not blue, but in my mind, they're blue. I see them blue. That's how a child thinks. That's how a child feels. His world is the fantasy world. And if we give him space for that fantasy world, who knows where I'm having really big problems with my Spanglish. Now, this is probably the look he's going to put after they say you can't paint a blue apple. But I remember when I was a kid, I did my blue apples. I would close my eyes, I would imagine my blue apple, and I would paint my blue apples inside my head. This gave me freedom. Gave me freedom because I didn't have to stay within the lines. Now, I'm setting a really thin line here. I see some faces that are looking at me like, okay, you're pushing it too far. I'm not going against, well, you're going to have a little buddy here who's going to help you. Because why is art not important in education, in modern education? Because we have to be like this. We have to be achievers and we have to end up being like this. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of these kids. If you see my academic scores, they were really low. Art was very high. And if I do everything well, I'll end up like this. Now, when Picasso tells me this and he says, look, you know something? I want you to be like a child. What child? Is he saying this child? No, he's saying this child. He's talking about the child that has the space to express himself freely. Now, this child, well, my wife just happened Is that my wife? This is triumph. This is failure. Now, if we look at the little kids who lived in a hut, this has a lot to do with what we're going to see a little bit further on. This seems to be like failure, but sometimes I observe my kids and I watch them when they were little, and I always ask myself, if they were to live in a hut, thousands and thousands of years ago, would I have shelves? Would I put everything in their place? Would they play in a natural way, and when they finish playing, leave everything, and then go do whatever chores they had to do, and come back to it? Would I tell them to put everything where they had to go? Probably not. So this would generate some sort of chaos between me and my kids. I wanted to come to this slide because I think this is what we're all feeling right now. I took you guys through a journey, and I want to ask honestly, don't we feel this? Sisto, stop critiquing education and start talking about what people really came here to hear. Okay, this is Fred, the frog, okay? What did we come here to hear? Where do the concepts of creation come from? Nature. One of the things we as artists do is we study nature. How does nature work? If we look at this photograph of nature and we look at this work of art is called Lavender Mist. It's a work of art of an artist called Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock was an abstract expressionist. He would drop paint from 3-4 meters distance, but he had no idea he was doing this. This is just a photograph I found, and I said to myself, wow, look what he's doing. He's imitating nature. No, he's not imitating nature. He's being one with nature. He's letting the power of creation flow in such a way that he's being part of that energy, and that part of energy doesn't only happen to visual artists, it happens to musicians, it happens to actors, it happens to people who write. How do you say people who write? Writers. The power of creation is something we all feel, but we need to let that power flow. Now, when I critique education, what I was trying to say is the rational part that we have that's very well formed, we have to teach it to go to sleep when we want to create. This is something to read. I would say the universe has a purpose. It's not there just somehow by chance. Roger Penrose came across this a few years ago. It's really interesting because it has a lot to do with what we're talking about. Nature works through negative and positive forces. Art works in the same way. How does an artist work in his studio when he paints? He thinks about darks, and he thinks about lights. Does anybody see a line in the middle between those two? Is there a line between dark and light? Does anybody see a line? You can talk. I mean, I'm not going to... No, I don't want to talk. Is there a line between dark and light? Yes? There's no line. There's no line. The limit is created. The limit is created when two opposite forces come together. They create the limit. I wanted to say this before my wife came, but now I'm going to have to say it while she's here. In our relationship, sometimes I have to be intimate, I have to talk about our relationship because that's how I get into people to listen. We have ups and downs. In our relationship, sometimes I'm positive. Wow, come on, let's go. And she's negative. No, I don't want to go. Okay? Sometimes I'm happy, and sometimes when I'm happy, she's sad. And you know what we do as a matrimonio, I'll say this Spanish, as a couple, we do this. It's very, very little times, there are very, very, little times that we're like this. I have the same relationship with my kids. When I'm positive, there's always one that's negative. And that's what gives energy in my home. Now, in my studio, with my students, the same thing happens. When those opposite forces start working, that's when the creative energy begins. And that's when my house has life, that's when my studio has life, and that's when I feel alive. Gotta be honest with you guys. You already know people, they had it really clear when they did this. What is this symbol? Okay? 2 words. Jing and Zhang. Okay, if I ask you if there was a line before, and now I ask you, do you guys see an S? What are you going to say? No. So no, because I'm going to come up. But I'm going to ask you guys, if you had to draw this, how would you draw this? How would you draw this? We would draw a circle, right? Circle. And then how would we draw this? We would, an S. No, not an S. You don't draw an S. You're not thinking like where we're going through. We have to think in opposite things. What are opposite things? We have a circle. What's a circle composed of? A lot of forms. But let's dissect it in half. One circle can be divided in how many? In 2 halves, right? So I'm going to grab this circle. Watch how easy it is to do this. I'm going to grab this circle, and I'm going to put to this circle its opposite. All right? Watch. Isn't that incredible? Now listen. This circle, if I do this, I'm giving it its opposite. This is yellow, and if this screen were right, this would be violet. We work in the studio as artists with 3 colors. Red, yellow, blue. Okay? Red, yellow, blue. Yellow, red, blue. This color here is yellow. What are the other 2 colors that are left over? Red and blue. Red and blue form violet. Violet, in color theory, is the opposite of yellow. Okay? Now watch. I want to do the S. I'm going to make the S with a semicircle, okay, here, and I'm going to give it its total opposite. I'm going to grab another semicircle, and I could either put it here, or I could do a complete opposite and put it here, and I would do this. Wasn't that simple? Okay, opposite forms that complement each other. Okay, that's how the universe works. That's the symbol of the yin-yang. I would really like to go to China and discuss with you. I never heard it this way. But it's really interesting. And there you would have the yin-yang. So, the power of creation is everywhere. The power of creation works what? With opposite forces. The opposite forces, you can see them in color. If we look at a color wheel, we see that we have these 3 primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. Blue and red make violet. Violet is the opposite of yellow. Green is the opposite of red. Orange is the opposite of blue. So color has opposites. Now, am I talking in riddles, or up to now you guys following me? What basically I think is the power of creation, which hasn't taken form yet, but how it works we understand. How does it work? Through opposites. Okay? If we think of abstraction, I can see color as color, or I can see color as something that's not color. I can see form as form, or something that's not form. Everything has its positive and negative form. If you guys look at me right now, you're actually seeing a blue pair of pants, but in reality, this wall has a lot of orange, which is its opposite. Now, what are the... I see you're a bit confused. I'm probably talking in riddles. No? Yes? No? Are you following me? Yes? If you look at me, you can see me as a man, and you'll never draw me if you don't have good drawing, or you could look at me and see the letter R. Who sees the letter R? Look, letter R, like that. R. You see the letter R? Here? Look. Okay? I'm abstracting the form. I'm changing the man to something else. What is the concept of abstraction? Abstraction is not seeing what I'm seeing, just seeing it in another form. Abstraction is seeing reality in a different way. lights and darks, I can see textures, I can see. What do you guys all see? I'm going to ask you guys, think about color, think about form, think about textures. Let's try to create a painting in our mind. If you try to think of all this stuff, it's kind of difficult because we're under a lot of pressure. We've got this little guy upstairs in the stage telling me that, look, you know something, education's not good, he's trying to change my mind on how to see the world. So if you're trying to make me right now, please put that down. What would you see if I asked you guys to think about a painting? What kind of painting would we see in our mind? Can you guys imagine something like this? Let's pretend we're all connected in our minds and we're all seeing this, okay? This is an abstract form and this is an abstract painting. The abstraction, if I look at it, it looks totally symmetrical when I divide it in half. When I see this half here and this half here, I see that the two halves actually look symmetrical, but they're not. Nature doesn't make anything symmetrical. There are no two of the same things in this whole universe. Okay? That's what makes us unique. Nothing repeats. In billions and billions and billions of years, no two things have been done the same way. And if they're done the same way, nature's really wise. I'm a perfect man. You know why I'm perfect? Because I'm not perfect. You know why I'm not perfect? Because when I look at myself in the mirror, this half has nothing to do with this half. So, the power of creation works through opposites, total opposites, and it works through symmetry and non-symmetry. Now, you guys are looking at this and you're saying to me, no, I see this as totally symmetrical. No, it's not symmetrical. Because if I were to grab this form, okay, look at this form here, look at this form here, it's not the same. Look at these three forms here, and they have nothing to do with that. Now, where are the true works of art? This is a work of art. Where did I get this from? What is this? Is this an abstraction? Is this reality? What is this? Excuse me?
Some type of butterfly or...
Oh, no, you guys can't do this to me. Is this creativity? Is this something creative? Where did this come from? You think this is a butterfly?
It has something to do with it.
It's not a butterfly.
Who says I think this is a butterfly? Why? Because you know what it is or you feel what it is?
Looks like wings and...
Yes?
Something
Louder.
transforming itself.
What's the power of creation? Something that transforms itself. That's creation. She says this could be a butterfly. I don't understand. Is this a work of art? Yes. Who created it? Each one of us. Each one of us is seeing something different. What is this? I give up. Tell me, Sisto. What is it? 1 minute, please. Okay. This is not something symmetrical. You said this is a butterfly?
It should be something similar.
Remember what you got. I need for you guys to remember this moment at the end of this conference. At the end of this conference, when I talk about memory and awakening memory, she found either she's very, 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 yes?
Is it too weird to think it's a couple of eyes and, I don't know, the rest of the face of a certain animal? I don't know.
You know what this is?
No idea.
You know what this is? You guys actually created. This is what you want to see. This is nothing more than you want to see. You guys really want to know what this is? Doesn't this intrigue you to see what this is? Look. Touche. Now, how did you know that? How did you know this was a butterfly? How did you know this was a butterfly? You knew it was a butterfly. How did you know it was a butterfly?
Because of the forms.
Or you felt it. Or you felt it. Why do we have such big problems as human beings in saying, I felt it? I felt it. We were actually all seeing things. We were all seeing the same thing, but each one of us was seeing a different reality. Each one of the reality we saw was our own reality. This was reality. We created this, all of us. What is abstraction? Everything's abstraction. What is reality? Everything is reality. It all depends on how we see things. I can see you as a very mean person, or I can see you as a very good person. Something really sweet happened to me today. Really sweet. Really knocked me over. Really beautiful thing happened. And I've been knocked around in life a lot, more than I would like. And I received a letter. And the lady, she said, "What do you see here?" And I looked at her and I see an opportunity. When in reality, she was crying her guts out. And it was an opportunity. You know, it all depends on how we see things. And that's how really the power of creation works. And that's one of the problems we have as artists. You guys see things as problems, and maybe sometimes we look things the other way around, and we do this. We don't look at the vase, we look at the two faces. Or sometimes we look at the vase, but we look at the two faces, and we can't see the two things at the same time. Okay? Remember that saying, the half glass? Sometimes it's half filled, and sometimes it's half empty. Okay?
Sisto?
Say yes.
I just think you're using the wrong size glass.
Why?
Well, some people say it's half full and some say it's half empty. I just say that you're using the wrong size container.
That's good. I don't understand, but you're taking me out of track here. I'm going to tell you guys a story. Freddy the Frog, he's been accompanying us up to now. I'm going to try to synthesize, we're coming towards the end of this. I mean, hope you guys think with the hope that I would bore you 4 hours with this stuff. No, this is going to be really short. I want to tell you guys a story. Many, many years ago, in 1993, I entered an art contest. I was very young, very close to 1987 when I came to Uruguay. And the Alianza did a contest. I was invited, as were invited many artists. I was one of the 6 finalists. The prize was, all 6 of us were going to do an exhibit. Maybe we could turn on the air conditioning if somebody needs it. Yes?
I'm fine with it.
Does anybody need air? No? I was invited to do the exhibit, and I was one of the 6 finalists. I was able to have a one-man show for 1 month. But here's the catch. All 6 of us were competing between each other. One of us was going to go to New York. I didn't win that part. Okay? It was a failure. I mean, you guys could have said, I went home, I cried, I said, I really knocked myself out. But in reality, it was really good that I didn't get to go where I had to go, because a lot of good things came out of it. In reality, something catapulted me much higher, okay? And I ended up going somewhere else where my life completely changed. Now, what happened when I did the exhibit? I flew into the power of creation, and I did an exhibit where for me it was very important to represent, okay, for that person that comes through that door in the gallery to understand, this is the reason I'm filming this, because we had it filmed and I lost the tape. In all my years, humidity killed the tape. I have no testimony that this really happened. And we did it with actors. I got 2 young actors. I said, no, look, I need you guys. There's not that much money, because we didn't have much money. I said, I need you guys to work with me. I can't promise you much, but if we do this right, maybe something good will happen. Actually, things happen good for all of us. Now, the exhibit was a fight. It was going through labor. Guys, I know you guys don't know what it's like to go through labor, just like I don't. But every time we do a painting, it's like a labor process. And then there was a process. How did this work? In the middle of the art gallery, okay, I created a jail, a square jail. Inside that square jail, I grabbed all my figurative painting. Does anybody not know what a figurative painting is? A figurative painting is something representational of something. A portrait, a still life, a landscape. And I grabbed all of my artworks that were figurative and I put them inside a jail. Okay? Imagine a jail. People came into the gallery and they're like, whoa, a jail. What's this? A square jail. Inside that jail, there was an artist. Okay? He was half nude from here upward, and he had canvas pants. He was sitting in the jail, and he was very anguished. He was looking down, and he was in complete sorrow. And the jail had chains with a lock. Outside the jail, there were a whole bunch of abstract works that I had done for the exhibit. Inside my figurative works, outside my abstract works. While he was sitting in his jail, the other artist, who was the work of art, can you imagine the work of art, the canvas? He was represented by another artist, okay? Another artist, another actor, I'm sorry. He comes with the keys and he opens the jail. The artist is sorry. He's crying. He can't take it anymore. He's seeing the world like they're telling him to see it. But the work of art opens the jail and lets him out. When he's out there, he's scared. He starts to see that new world, that new abstract world. He doesn't know where he's at. He doesn't understand anything. He's saying to himself, where am I? The work of art, this is really beautiful because the internet let me find pictures that could illustrate this. The work of art grabbed the artist. And this is how I work in my studio. I teach people to paint only with 3 colors and white. That's all you need to create. So the artist, he was like giving up. He wanted to go back. But the work of art grabbed him and made him put his hands inside the paint and grabbed his hands and made him paint the work of art. You know what the artist felt when he did that? He felt freedom. He felt the power of creation. When he felt the power of creation, he started to feel alive. He started to see life inside the painting. But the painting was wise. The painting, when he was in that moment that he wanted to finish the painting ran away. He took off. And the artist said, wait, I was just feeling this, and the work of art just ran off my hands. And here I am alone again. The work of art went to the jail, closed the chains, put the lock back on, and disappeared. While in the creative process, the artist loses the work and becomes lost again. He never lost the work of art. The work of art was all around him. He went back to the jail. He tried to open the jail, but he saw that it was locked. He couldn't go back to that figurative world again. He had tasted the power of creation. He had tasted the abstraction. He's seeing the world in a totally different way. Again, he's bowed before life, sorry for what's happening. And he doesn't want to live anymore because he doesn't want to go back. He can't go back. And what little freedom he had lost it. But the work of art was really wise. It gave him time to think, it gave him time to value. And while he's sorrowing and crying, the work of art comes from behind, grabs him, throws him on the floor, and it gives himself, the work of art gives himself to the artist, and the artist gives himself to the work of art. The struggle ends, and the artist understands that neither being figurative or abstract, it's what it's all about. It's understanding how the power of creation works. That's why it's important to take away the ego. The ego is what's making us sorrow. Now, this makes me understand works of art of great artists like Escher. We just saw Escher. We're now seeing Vincent van Gogh, which is one of my favorite artists. Why is he one of my favorite artists? Look what he does. He puts next to every blue, it's opposite color. He puts an orange. Next to every yellow, he puts a little bit of violet, which is the opposite of yellow. Where there's a dark, there's a light. And he contradicts himself with the movements, and he doesn't create symmetry, and he makes these canals so the color can move, and actually this is vibrating. You know what he did here? He actually painted wind. Who freaking paints wind? I mean, who has it in their mind to paint wind? Now, we have to go about 150, 200 years back to understand that you can't paint wind. This guy's crazy. How can you paint wind? He painted wind. He connected with the energy. Norman Rockwell. I'm just going to go really quick through this. Who hasn't gone through this in life? Rockwell was very criticized. Why? Because he was an illustrator. He wasn't an artist. He was an illustrator. No, he was an artist. I mean, I'll fight for him anywhere. He was an artist. Look at the things he's saying as a man. This little girl, she's leaving her doll because she's entering she's going to be an adolescent. I, as a man, had to go through this when I had to shave. One of the examples. And she's looking, I think, at Greta Garbo, and she has lipsticks, and she's having a fight with herself because she has to leave a part of her life that she loves to enter a new part of life. Now, art is very powerful. This is my friend Jackson Pop.
And I thought that was very accurate. And then the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, Bernard Idings-Bell, said, "To be artist and lover, that is the true goal, the only adequate objective, the divinely destined end of man." And I wholeheartedly agree. Sisto Pascale was born in Montevideo, Uruguay in 1965. When he was just 5 years old, he moved to the United States, where he lived for 17 years. At a very early age, he began to study and participate in numerous art contests and workshops. By the age of 18, he had achieved many awards and recognitions for his work, to include Scholastic Art Awards, finalist with 2 gold keys, a painting at the Goddard Space Flight Center collection, finalist at the Kennedy Center Reader's Digest Art Contest, and various ASTAG Art Awards. He also won a scholarship from the Corcoran Art College, the Maryland College of Art and Design, the Baltimore Art College, and Pratt, and many more. In 1987, he returned to Uruguay with a degree from the Fine Arts College, from Maryland College of Art and Design, which is now the School of Art and Design at Montgomery College, including an associate's degree in fine art. Now, to those of you who moved to Uruguay at a young age, you know that there's no reciprocity whatsoever when you come with your college degrees here. You have to start all over again. So they gave Sisto, when he inquired about that at that age, they said, "Well, you can go back where you came from." They said it directly. "You go back where you came from. You can keep studying, but your degree won't be worth anything when it's done, or you can open up an art school." So, in keeping with that, he established his art studio and school and began teaching. From 1987 to date, he has worked and exhibited in almost all of the main Uruguayan art galleries. During the last 20 years, he has also made it possible for over 6,500 children, adolescents, and adults to somehow be involved in his continuous art projects. Thanks to the collaboration of many companies and his students, in his studios, he has taught over 1,000 students. He has also worked hard in helping change the way art is taught in Uruguay through his conferences, where he has made many aware of the fact that art forms are part of our day-to-day life, hence my quotes of Uruguay. He has worked as a consultant, an art consultant with many private firms and embassies, including the United States Embassy for many years. If you go to Sisto's website, you'll see a lot of those things. To celebrate in 2007, to celebrate his 20 years of exceptional work in Uruguay, he had an exhibit, an extensive exhibit at the U.S. Embassy. His artwork inaugurated the new Carnival Museum here in Uruguay. Then he was asked by the U.S. Embassy to do a one-man show for President Bush when he visited Uruguay. He has participated in collective art exhibits celebrating Punta del Este's 100th birthday at the Matra Casino Hotel. In the past 4 years, Sisto organized, in conjunction with the Uruguayan Air Force, an art project for kids involving the making, decorating of kites for flying kites. He organized and directed a documentary about the Candombe as Patrimonio de la Humanidad. And that was for the Presidencia de la Cámara del Palacio Legislativo. He also gave 2 conferences at the National Museum of Modern Art in Uruguay. Without further ado, I was going to try to condense some of that, but then when I read it several times, I thought, you know what, let's really, see what the master has done. Without further ado, we'll get started with the conference. It's a really fascinating subject. I've heard it in Spanish, and I look forward to hearing it in English. Thank you.
Well, basically everything that Paul said is true, but that doesn't make a man. What makes a man is basically how he stands and what he does. I judge people in life through their actions, not their words. Something I read somewhere in the almost 50 years I have. The title to the conference is Power of Creation. What is power of creation? Well, basically we're here to try to figure out what my interpretation is of power of creation. The hypothesis I'm throwing over the table are 27 years of research. When Paul said over 1,000 students, I've had more than 1,000 students in my studio, and I've reached out. I've lost count, but I think we've gone over the 10,000 limit with all the things we've done. And there are certain things that keep repeating in us as human beings. And first of all, before starting that, I'd like to thank the American Association. I was really emotional when they invited me. In these 27 years, it's been very hard. In Uruguay, I think someone should start something like this, but the Alianza has been a great part of my life. Its library, thanks to its library, I was able to research. You have to go back in time in 1987 when a young kid comes to Uruguay and he needs so we are both at the same level. We had a program before you guys came.
Okay, well, welcome this evening. I'm Paul Turman. My wife is the Vice President of the American Association, and the American Association is happy to welcome you to this presentation by the Master Sisto Pascale. I've had the honor of being his friend for many years. I've had the privilege of being in his studio on many occasions and to have heard his wisdom on art. It's very interesting, and I'm not going to do any spoilers or anything like that, but it's very interesting that all through history, art has been an integral part of society, of everything that we do. And even now we have it separate in the world. Now it's crafts on one side and art on one side, but actually everything was always art. and we've got a little bit away from that. In the 1920s and 30s, there was a very famous English author, Sir Hugh Seymour Walpole, and he said, "Art and life ought to be hurriedly remarried and brought to live together." And I thought about that, and